Hello, welcome to Laser Cut and Fly. On this channel, I'm going to show you how to get free plans off the internet, how to convert them for your laser, how to cut out the components and build and fly your own aircraft. And with old timers like this, I'll show you how to convert to radio control. Let's get going. Hello, welcome back to Laser Cut and Fly RC Models. I'm the laser model guy, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to convert this aeroplane to radio control. In the previous episodes you've seen how we used our Lightburn program to send our components to our laser cutter. We cut out the components and then we built the aircraft bit by bit. Now to convert to radio control, what we've got to do is in the wings, we've got to put ailerons so that we can raise or lower the wing on each side. We've got to put an elevator into the tailplane, and we've also got to put a hinge in the rudder so the rudder will be able to turn as well. So each of the areas that we're going to adjust, or where we're going to make alterations to give us the movement, we're going to need a hinge of some kind. Hinges now, and so what I'm going to do with this layout is I'm going to try this tape, and we'll see how that works for us. So the first component that I'm going to look at is our rudder. Now it's the most straightforward because the rudder is going to sit on the aeroplane like that, and the back part of the rudder, or the movable part of the rudder, is already separate. So all we're going to need to do to make this workable is to cut a nice 45-degree angle on the edge of this strip of wood, so that the rudder, when it turns, has got somewhere to go without opening up the side that's got the tape on. And I'll show you how to do that right now. Okay, so this is the part I'm going to deal with first in order to make our rudder turn. So all I want to do is put the ruler right on the edge of that strip there, and then I'm going to angle my knife so that it's in at around about 45 degrees, and I'm just going to trim off the material from under there, just like that. And then what will happen is you can see the angle there. Be able to, once they're covered, we'll be able to apply a strip of this tape there, and then when it turns this way it'll be fine, and when it turns that way it'll go straight into that 45-degree cut that we've just made. And it's as simple as so. I've put some extra balsa wood in the back of the wing, so that I can now, in the back of the tailplane, so I can now cut straight across and make our elevators. Now the way I'm going to do this is, if we just have a look at where that back wing, or the back, or the tailplane sits, you can see that this part of the tailplane is just flush with the end of the fuselage, or just inside the end of the fuselage. So we're going to have to cut it inside of that, and then we'll have to ease the fuselage a little bit. Maybe just take a little bit of material out of the fuselage to allow the elevator to go up and down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut straight across the elevator, and I'm going to use a piece of this, which is carbon, and it's carbon strip. It's 5mm wide carbon strip, and that's going to run along the length of the wing or of the elevator. And the reason for that is when I cut the elevator off, there's going to be a very thin strip in the middle here that goes through the body of the aircraft, or body of the fuselage. And if we were reliant just on that piece of balsa wood, then operating the elevators over time, this would break. So interesting to note, we're actually cutting across the grain on the original pieces of the tail plane, and there we go, we're now separate. Okay, so that's going to be the elevator. So it's quite small, but it'll be well big enough for this size of aircraft. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut in the 45-degree slot, and I'm going to stick on a piece of this carbon underneath. So if I turn it over, flip it over, and I'll just cut that to that length there. Cuts quite simply. Move that out of the way. So now I'm going to fasten that onto the back, or onto the underside of the elevator, and I'm going to fasten that on with super glue. Obviously balsa cement won't work for this. A little bit of super glue all the way down there. Piece of carbon. There we go. Okay, and all that does is it gives a bit of strength to it so that it can't snap off at any time in the future. It won't snap in the middle. Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to cover this in a grey heat shrink plastic. It's self-adhesive, and all you do is you place it over the bit that you're going to cover, and then just tack it in place. This is an iron for covering models. It's the Prolux Deluxe Thermal Sealing Iron. So all I'm going to do is go to this end, and I'm going to just seal that onto the end. Just use the corner of the iron there, and you can see where it sticks. And then come to this end, pull it so it's nice and smooth, just fasten it on there, and then I'll just do a few places down the sides. Move that out your way, and then I'll come down this side, just fasten it on in a few places along there. Okay, once I've done that, what I'm going to do now is just trim around so that I've just got a small bit overlapping that I can then fold over. So that it's nice and smooth as it goes through the air. Right, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring the edges over and stick them onto the edges of the tailplane, just like that. Now, I normally would use, when I come to shrink the centre part, you know, the main material in the centre of the tailplane. I would normally use a hot air blower to do that because it gets all the detail. You know, there's no bit that doesn't get touched by a hot air blower. Whereas if you're using a flat iron and you've got any undulations in the model, which you will have on the fuselage and in other places, then the blower is the best thing. But because this is flat, I'm going to shrink this using the iron itself. I don't think we'll have a problem with this. Okay, just get these ends done, the wing tips. There. I just want to snip away a little bit here, because with this being our 45-degree angle, what I don't want to do is I don't want to have any lumps of cover in the corners that are going to stop it sitting smoothly and flat. So I'll just snip those little corners out, just like that. Okay, and now I'm going to make the .45-degree surface. I'm going to make sure that that's nice and flat. Once I've done that, I'm going to just bring that over onto the underside of the wing. Okay, so that's the tailplane and the elevator covered. So what I'm going to do now is use a bit of super glue and put the control horn in, which will just sit there. So let me just do that now. Okay, a little bit of super glue, just hold that in place for, I don't know, for a short time, and I think we're now ready to put the hinge on, which is what I wanted to show you. So this is the tape that I'm going to be using as our hinge. The angle there is at 45 degrees. That's on the underside, as is the horn. So we want the tape to come across the top of there, and that'll allow our elevator to operate. So we just lay them on there like that. And we can just trim off any excess in a minute. There we go, and we smooth that in. It should disappear and become more or less invisible. And when our decals are on, we won't be able to see it. Let me just trim any extra bits off. Okay, and so that's our elevator dealt with. Okay, and so that will fit inside our aeroplane, and then what we'll do is we'll just ease this wood here a little bit so that we can operate the elevator just by cutting a little bit out at the top and at the bottom. And then, oops, and then that should work absolutely perfectly. Okay. So next I'm going to put the ailerons into the wing. Now there's the central section which will sit underneath the fuselage, and what I've decided is that I'm going to put the ailerons in as close to the end of the wing as I really can, because then it'll have the most leverage and I'll get the most effect from them. So I'm going to put the aileron in here, in this section, which is just one rib in or one former in from the wingtip. So the aileron will be there, and the way I'm going to do that is just simply cut this section out, and then I'm going to build a small section and fit it in there and use a hinge, the same as I used on the tailplane. Okay, so I'm going to use this, I'm going to build this up and make this into the aileron. But what I'm going to do, or what I'd like to point out, is that I've cut this at an angle, and that's so that when the aileron goes down, it's got somewhere to go. And I'll show you how that works in just a second. So I've cut a strip of wood that is going to fit in there. If I just put that in. Now what I want it to do, I want it to be at right angles to the former, so that the flap will come up and down without snagging. If I do it parallel to this spar, for example, it might look more pleasing, but what that would mean is that the flap would move sideways as it come up, and I want it to move parallel. So if I just stick that in, that will be that wing ready then to have an aileron fitted. There we go. And that's fitted nicely into there. So that's that wing now prepared. That's that wing now prepared for the aileron. We'll just wait till that sets. Just sand it down, make it nice and smooth and neat, and then we'll be able to fit our aileron with our servo, and we'll be ready to go. I'll just do that same thing to the other side, and then we'll build the ailerons. Okay, so I've cut some small parts and I'm going to put those all together now, and that should be our aileron made. So just put that piece on there, and then go in there like that. Yeah, and I'll just go at the end there. Just like that, and I'll just take that edge off once we are all set. Okay, and so that will fit inside, and you can see how that'll go, and it'll have the a horn on the underside. There'll be a servo in here which will operate that flap, and that's how that's going to work. So let's leave that to set. I'll make the other one, and then we'll be able to assemble those, or put the horns on, and then we'll be more or less ready to start covering the aeroplane. So we've done the tail, or the tail plane, and I've now attached that to the aeroplane. So that's now in place, and it operates. We've got our horn ready, so I'll be fitting the servo just in there, and that will operate the tail plane once it's installed. I'm now going to do exactly the same thing as I did with this to the fin itself and the rudder. That's already got its 45-degree angle, so I'm going to cover that in exactly the same way as I covered the tail. I'm going to put the horn just down here, so that will be operated again by a servo, and then I'm going to cover the two elevators that we've now got, which will sit just in there and operate like that. I'm going to cover them and put the horns on, and then that will be it. The aeroplane will then be converted ready for radio control. So what I'm going to do in the next episode is I'm going to fit the electrics. I'm going to fit the servos, I'm going to fit the controller and the receiver, and I'm going to find a place where I can put the battery. I won't be fitting the battery straight away because I want to check the centre of balance of the aircraft before I decide how far forward the battery is going to sit. But that's what I intend to do next time. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.